What up, everyone? DJ Nubis here with you on the Metal Time Radio podcast, doing a YouTube, doing my top 10 movies of 2022. Some of these are movies that Neko has seen, but some are not. So I kind of just chose to do this on my own since she hadn't seen a few of these. But nevertheless, I'm not sure how her rankings would be compared to mine, or even she would have. In fact, I might do one specifically for her choices, but she's kind of a busy girl as it is. So I will do it for myself. But before we get into all that, how about the World Cup, folks? Are you people on the World Cup soccer? I love it. Football. Today had a couple great games. You had Croatia and Brazil. Croatia upset Brazil in penalty kicks after going a long time at 1-1. We kind of thought that Brazil might actually win it towards the end there. They got their first goal that broke the 0-0 tie. And Croatia made a way to get another score in before the regular time was up. And then they went to penalty kicks, and Brazil couldn't get it done. So that was like a big upset. Then we had Argentina going against the Netherlands. And at one point, after about 83 minutes, Argentina was up 2-0 in regular time, and then you thought the game was over, but no. Netherlands found a way to get back in it, tied it up. Again, extra time, still couldn't score, so they went to penalty kicks. And at that point, Argentina found a way to get it done by 4-3 at that point for penalty kicks, and it's been wild. So for those that follow this, it's been a lot of fun. And I know a couple weeks from now, Poet and I will be doing another episode of Poetic Carnage. So we'll probably be talking a lot more about World Cup at that point. I mean, we're kind of overstating ourselves with NFL football, which we'll still get to a little bit. But I think we're going to start branching out into other sports at this point, unless we talk about the playoffs for NFL and whatnot, which the Broncos aren't going to be there. So who gives a shit, right? So let's get into the top 10 movies of 2022. I will say there's one film in here that was listed as a 2021, but I think because it was done or released outside of the U.S. and then released in the U.S. in 2022, that I'm going to consider it 2022, at least for when I saw it. I don't think it was even available for us during the 2021 year, so you can correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section, but I don't know. It's still, from what I've seen, has been listed as a 2022 release. So go with that, even though it was made in 2021. So let's start with number 10. This is a film that there's a few of these that I've done reviews for on the YouTube channel. So if you have curious about me going more in depth with them, check them out. This is a film that I wasn't super excited for because I really love Christopher Nolan's trilogy on the DC universe, but it seemed interesting. It was a little bit more of a film noir type approach to the Batman, with directed by Matt Reeves and starring Robert Pattinson, Zoe Kravitz, and Paul Dano. And it's about, if I remember, I think it get like a 7 or 8 out of 10 at that time. So certainly, it wasn't a bad movie. It wasn't bad. Maybe probably a little bit long, but it's up at number 10. Like, it really, this year, really, I think I found it hard to find a top 10. Like, there's still some films I haven't seen. So if you are watching this and you don't see it in a list, it doesn't mean that I didn't think it was good. It's just a big possibility I just hadn't seen it. Like, I know, like Terrifier 2 for some people, or Everything at Once for others. And there's still some other films that I wanted to see that I just never got around to. So this is just based off films that I've actually seen this year. At number 9, Neko and I just talked about this when we reviewed it on the podcast before we did away with the podcast itself, as far as the music and everything. It took a lot of heat, and there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that really was, you have to wonder if maybe they just generated that for exposure or not. I don't know. But either way, Don't Worry, Darling by Olivia Wilde was not too bad. It actually isn't a bad film. There's some problems with it, obviously, but Florence Pugh shines in this. It's directed by Olivia Wilde, also stars Harry Styles and Chris Pine in it. And there's enough going on in it that makes it interesting. It certainly can compare to like the Stepford Wives and stuff like that. Um, but it's not half as bad as I thought that people were giving, especially critics. At number 8, probably one of the movies I was most excited for this year. And I did a big discussion with Sci-Fi Century and Walter Jedi Valley about this movie not too long ago on Century Channel, and that is The Northman, directed by Robert Eggers, who also did The Witch. It stars Alexander Skarsgård, Nicole Kidman, and Taylor Ann Joy. Taylor Ann is always mesmerizing on screen, and it's a good film. It was a little bit slower than I thought it might be in terms of like the fighting and stuff, but when it hits, it hits. And as most times with Eggers, his films are very beautifully shot. The scenic area where they shot the film was very nice, and it worked in terms of the look and the cinematic value of the film. Number 7, X, directed by Ty West, starring Mia Goth, Jenna Ortega, and Brittany Snow. I did not even realize till recently that Jenna Ortega was in it. Now, that's not to say that I wasn't really paying attention. It's just that she wasn't really a brand name at that point. I had just got done seeing Wednesday, the series on Netflix with the Addams Family, and she plays Wednesday Addams and knocked that out of the park. So I'm going to have to revisit X just to try to remind myself which character Jenna was in that. But very cool that she was in that film. But Mia Goth, what's to be said about her? She's a very great actress. I have not seen Pearl yet. A lot of people are saying it's really good. It's also a part of that series, a prequel to X. So at some point, I would definitely check that out and get back to you on that. Maybe do a review for that. That's kind of what we're concentrating on more now. I've got a couple of trailer reactions with Neko I want to do soon. More music, of course. I want to give you more top 5s and especially keep the weekly top 5 going. But we're concentrating more on the YouTube stuff, trying to connect more with you all on that level. And so that's why we'll be doing that. So whenever I get a chance to see Pearl, I will definitely let you know my thoughts on that. Number 6 is kind of like a controversial pick for most people, not so much for myself, though. Mainly because I really thought it was good. I didn't have a problem with it. And that is Doctor Strange 2, Multiverse of Madness, directed by Sam Raimi and has Benedict Cumberbatch and Elizabeth Olsen in it. And I actually enjoyed this more than the first one. I know some people had problems with it, maybe because they're kind of getting tired of Marvel in general. And to some degree, I understand that. Like, it's become oversaturated, especially on Disney with some of the new series they have going on. Some series I'm connecting with, some I'm not. But I find that for myself, when it comes to the Marvel universe right now, is that I'm still attached to the original characters from the major films from early on. So Scarlet Witch and Doctor Strange are a part of that. So because I'm very more into their characters and familiar with them in general, I enjoyed this more than I would say Miss Marvel or something else. You know what I mean? Number 5. This is kind of one that caught Nick and I by surprise because we kind of went in blind, didn't know anything about it, and it just came out of nowhere. It's one of those films that has kind of like the endings you don't expect, and that is Speak No Evil. And this is on Shudder right now. Directed by Christian Tadrup, and then starring Morton Burrion, Cecile Sean Koch, Freja Van Hewitt. And this film was pretty crazy. I mean, you kind of start figuring things aren't right, but then you don't really know where it's going to go. And then even at the end, it's one of those endings that Nick and I agreed kind of make you mad. Not so much that it has the ending it does, but just how it ends up unraveling and finally coming to fruition. It's like, really? Really? So if you like endings that you're not expecting, check it out. It's more of a thriller drama type thing. It's not so much horror. I mean, there is horror a little bit in it, but it's not your atypical horror film. It's not like a slash or anything like that. But and it's not even paranormal. It's just fucked up. uh Number four. I just saw this last night with Neko, and I know she was kind of not paying as much attention because she was working on some things, but she was seeing some of it. I almost hesitate putting it in my top 10 just because at first, I think for the first 20 minutes, I was not sure if this was going to turn out to be as good as I thought it might be. But as it progressed to the end of the film, it really became a lot of fun. It was funny, and the characters are great. And that's Bullet Train, directed by David Leitch. Stars Brad Pitt, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Hiroyuki Sanada, Andrew Koji, and Logan Lerman. And I'll tell you, like, going back and looking at the cast here, Brad Pitt's easy to see. Sanada's easy to see. Like, I recognize them both very easy. One of the guys who played a pair of brothers as hitmen was portrayed by Aaron Taylor Johnson, and I didn't even know it was him. Like, I knew he looked familiar, but his accent and everything else like threw me off. And so like I just didn't realize it was the same guy. I'm like, holy fuck, when I saw that. Andrew Koji, of course, if you ever watched the series Warrior, I know that Nick and I have not gotten around to finishing that series. We should. But he's a very good actor, and he's in this as well. And then Logan Lerman, this is another big surprise. Not the biggest part for Logan in this, but his character in it as the son on the train, which for those that aren't as familiar as I am with the film, he's unrecognizable. Unrecognizable. Like, I was blown away when I found out it was him. I was like, I didn't even know it. Like, I'm like, holy fuck. Like, he has that kind of look of like Jared Leto almost, with the longer hair and stuff. And I was like, he's got some tattoos, work on beard. And I'm like, fuck, dude, I did not even know that was him. That was nuts. Now, I don't know if that was like a wig or he just grew his hair out for this or whatever. I mean, obviously, he's getting older as time goes on. I mean, I'm thinking back to Noah, and stuff like that he did, and Perks of Being a Wallflower and stuff like that. So he was still very young looking back then. So I didn't even recognize him there. But this film was a lot of fun. A lot of great stuff going on. There's a girl, Joey King, I think is her name. She's a lot of fun. I'm not familiar with a lot of her work. She's probably been doing stuff about a decade, maybe a little less. But her role in this is really good too. I really enjoyed her character. Now, number 3 is the one I was talking about in terms of the movie was made in 2021 and released overseas. I want to say South Korea. I hope I get that right. I'm pretty sure I'm right on that. Didn't get released to the States till this year through Shudder. And so that's why I'm kind of just classified. There was another film that I was going to do the same thing with, but that one's a little bit different because I think people had access to that one as compared to this one. So at number 3, I've got The Sadness. Everybody had been talking about this. Samurai Guy, just people in general had really been talking about this film. It's a different type of like zombie flick. It's actually a little bit more on the lines of like 28 Days Later and stuff like that, but so well done. And I really enjoyed the shit out of it more than I thought I would. I've talked about it in the review I did for it. If you didn't hear it back then, I'm sorry. Maybe I'll come back and try to do an actual video review for it all. I'll probably rewatch it and do that for you. But there is a scene in there where I'm just like, oh my God, they went there. And they didn't really show it, but you knew exactly what was going on. It's fucked up as all the league. Yeah, so really, really good flick. It was directed by Rob Jabaz, starred Barrett Zhu, Regina Lai, and Yingru Chen. So it is subtitled, although it might have been in English. It might have. I can't remember. I thought for sure it was subtitled. Either way, it didn't matter. It was a fucking great flick. I really enjoyed the shit out of it. Number two, this one was actually going to be my number one for most of the year. And Neko probably would still have it at the number one for herself. I just know her. I didn't think there'd be anything that would unseat it. Not a thing. But at number two, it's still a very strong film. It's equally as good as the first one. That's Top Gun Maverick. Maverick, baby. You got directed by Joseph Kosinski, stars Tom Cruise, Jennifer Connelly, and Miles Teller. I've kind of become a fan of Miles through when he did the movie Whiplash. I thought that was an amazing movie. Miles' character obviously plays the son of Goose, who was a co-pilot for Maverick in the first film, and it plays off of that a little bit. Despite some of the similar storyline, it does change it up a bit, and the action's great. You know that Tom is going to go full throttle 100% for this film, and which he did. You oftentimes go into the sequels thinking it's not going to really live up to the originals, but this one does. It was a 10 out of 10 then, it still is. It only got beat by number one because I guess more of a, once I get into it, I guess it's more just about the emotion of the number one for me, which let's get into it, right? Let's just get into it. Number one, did not expect it. Didn't go into it. I thought I'd go into it liking it. I just didn't think I'd come out of it loving it. Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. And I think I did give the first one like a 9 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10 when it came out. I really liked it. I remember a lot of people talking about the first one. There was a lot of complaints, a lot of this and that. And I thought the complaints aren't warranted. Now, obviously, the passing of Boseman, you now have to pass the torch. And the way that, in fact, Aaron Pinnacle Cinema actually explained a lot of this too. I believe he was the one that was doing it. Yeah, he was. How they just did it right. Maybe it was Aaron. I don't know. Somebody I watched explained exactly how I felt about this film because it was so well done. And the way the emotion is in it, it's not like forced. It's not like a gimmick. It's not used to exploit Boseman's death. It's done tactfully and tastefully and classy. And it's equally as good and as entertaining as the first one. In fact, better. I liked a lot of what I saw in this. Even with, it's directed, of course, directed by Ryan Coogler, stars Letitia Wright, Lupita Nyong'o, Angela Bassett, and Tenoch Huerta, who plays Namor, whose character is also not your typical villain. So it didn't follow any particular line of thinking in terms of storyline like you would think. I think I could kind of appreciate that more about this film because it kind of thought it forced him to think outside the box. You didn't have Boseman anymore. I'm sure the way that the plot would have changed a little bit from the original. But the way they came about it and got everything done, the humor is there. Even if you have some of like what you would say is the woke stuff that's in there, it's not force fed. It's done precisely and just in fun ways, and I think that works. That always works better for me when it's not something they're trying to force down your throat. When they're doing it just naturally, which I felt they were forcing it in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Like I thought for sure that series was trying too damn hard to force a narrative that really didn't need forcing. Like I can accept they want to point certain things out, but the way they went about it was just terrible. And I think that was the biggest turnoff about that series. This, however, didn't do all that. It worked with everything else and let that narrative be like the backdrop to certain points where they wanted to point all that out. But entertainment wise, it was just amazing. The characters were amazing. The acting was amazing. If you're going to talk about female power, this film shows a lot of it, which is great. All the women in this were amazing, just top to bottom. And I did not expect for this to outdo Top Gun, but it did, because I didn't leave like the theater crying or drenched in tears, but I was getting emotional with it. Like there was points, when I remember seeing Fast and the Furious 7 or whatever it was, where they did something at the end regarding Paul Walker. That to me, even though I didn't think they were exploiting anything, it was misplaced. Probably wasn't needed, but I know why Vin did it. He was best friends with Paul for a while, and the cast, everybody loved Paul. So I don't really have such a big problem with it. But in this case, the way that they went about touching on Boseman's death and everything was just done perfectly. Just so well done. Like I can't really state that enough. And the film is just so good. And yeah, we're in December. I don't even think there's going to be a film that's going to outdo it. I mean, Aaron talked about Pearl probably would have been on his list, although he didn't see all of it till afterwards. So even if I go and see Pearl like before the end of the year, even if I feel like it's in the top 10, I'm not going to redo everything, but I'll probably mention it at some point about something. But yeah, that's my top 10 movies of 2022. I certainly hope that you all enjoyed it. And if you have any questions or, have your own top 10 list you want to give me, I'd be free to, or recommendations, whatever, let me know. I'm always up to check out new films, and any opinions or comments you may have about my list, give them to me, baby. Give them to me. Anyway, thank you all for checking out this video. I'll try to get more content for you when I can, and keep it metal. Stay cool. Have a great weekend.